Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. In the comics, TV, and movies, we will go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to the Superhuman Law Division of GLK&H to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the man without fear, Chris.
And I'm Weapon X Travis.
Alliance Assemble,
Assemble.
Volume 130. And you are not Brent. You are definitely not Brent.
No, I'm not, but I could not be more excited to be here. I was just excited for the She-Hulk episode because I was asked, listeners, I want to say last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, Ollie and I enjoyed talking about the Disney Plus Marvel shows with the boys, Chris or Brent, or both. But this news that we got dropped 2 days ago, which I can't wait to talk about what I thought it was at first, is pretty exciting, Chris. I am, after a while, something that I didn't think was going to happen actually happened, and it's awesome.
But yes, I will thank you for crossing the ever-flowing multiverse from DC Alliance to us as well. So I know Brent appreciates it. Brent is on special assignment this week. He will be back next week, but I know he is with us in spirit and is very excited about the news that we will get to talk about.
Agreed, and also excited. Maybe something didn't happen in the episode we'll talk about in a little bit.
Oh no,
Maybe
he's very excited about that. But all right, well, we got a lot to talk about tonight, so we will get the quick show plugs out of the way. So we are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network, and we have 8 shows covering all the wide range of geek and nerddom, covering all these different shows. So check out the show notes for the full schedule below at that point. And also make sure you subscribe to the Geek Ultimate Alliance on Twitter at GUA Pod Network so you know when all those shows drop, either live or on the audio feed. So make sure you check that out. And we also have a Patreon. So if you want to throw a couple of shekels our way, we greatly appreciate our patrons. We cannot do this without your support. And we've got 2 tiers. We've got our $1 tiers, our tip jar to say, hey, you think we're doing a good job. And then we've got our $5 tier with ad-free episodes, early access episodes, and Patreon exclusive shows. And we've got a lot of great stuff for our patrons. You know, I know Joe's making us all look silly with his daily Patreon drops with his 30 plus days of those spooky movies and everything that he's given his quick little retros about, which I'm definitely enjoying. It gives me some of some retrospective on my end. How about you?
I'm really enjoying them as well. He told me about this last week when we were doing superhero discussions, and I couldn't have been more excited. A couple of the films I really scared me growing up too, especially A Nightmare on Elm Street. A couple of the other ones he told me he's going to cover. So look for even more down the line, and some of it he's holding back some really good ones. Just to let the listeners know.
Yep, and we've got ours ones. We can watch this all day. The Marvel Alliance rewatch. We've got our episode 9 of Iron Man 3, looking back on Iron Man 3, and the final Marvel one shot of the All Hail the King. Katie's got her comic book legends reviews with her husband. You've got your top 5s. We've got Clay's for the first time with Game of Thrones. A lot of great stuff coming at you. So again, thank you, patrons. And if you want to join us on Patreon, go to www.patreon.com/GUA network. And we appreciate everyone that is a part of the network, part of that Patreon. So thank you so much. And then if you can't join us on Patreon, we understand. But if you can take 30 to 90 seconds and rate review the Marvel Alliance solo feed, GUA feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcatcher of choice may be, we greatly appreciate that. And I want to give a special plug to my newest episode of World's Finest True Believers, the monthly episode of Drop. My friend Omar from Near Mint Condition has rejoined me for his favorite story of all time, The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. So again, it's more than just a Disney thing at that point. So check that out. I want to thank Omar for coming back on. And last but certainly not least, we want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com, for all your omnibus hardcover collected edition needs. JP and the crew at OPB have got it going on with all your hardcover needs, omnibus collected editions, everything. Ships around the world, immaculate shipping, and great customer service. And use that code MARVELGUA at checkout to get $2 off every single order. Check out the new final order cutoff with a lot of great stuff, a lot of great Marvel, DC, Image, everything you could ever dream of under the sun. And as always, we want to thank Organic Price Books for being our official sponsor. All right, so we have a new episode of She-Hulk. It's number 7 as we're marching towards the end. So this one was entitled Retreat. The Retreat, excuse me. So what were some of your non-spoiler thoughts on this one, Travis?
I really enjoyed this episode, Chris. I've seen a little bit of complaints online, and if you're watching this for an appearance of another character, then you're watching the show for the wrong reason, in my opinion. I thought this just went along so well, and it's really relatable. I think we've all been ghosted or felt like we've been ghosted looking at our phone, or most of us anyway, at times in our lives. And the thing that Jan went through, I didn't. I was hesitant about how they were going to resolve this issue, but honestly, it had me laughing and surprised at how much actual emotional work they did in this episode with Jen's character.
Yeah, this was, another kind of, another one-off, but again, a very good character developing, Jen, as this whole series has been about, like Jen wrestling with this identity of, wanting to be Jen, not wanting to be She-Hulk, but seeing, as she kind of says in the episode, She-Hulk seems to kind of get all the wins while Jen seems to always come up short. And, had some good funny moments at this point. It's one of these things that we know the end is coming for this show with only 2 episodes left, but I think this was an important character development thing, especially when we get to later in the episode, sitting down in kind of the group therapy session, her kind of wrestling with exactly what it is and what she needs to do for moving forward and coming to a understanding of where can we find the balance of She-Hulk and Jen at that point. And, we also get some more hints of, can Jen trust anyone that takes any interest in her?
I didn't trust that guy from the beginning. But that's just me. Every person I see that's nice to a character, I instantly question. I'm like, who are you working for? Who?
Yes, it seems to be that, but yeah. So if you have not seen episode 7 of She-Hulk, stop now, watch the episode, come back to us at that point, and we're gonna take our first ad break. So listeners, these ads help keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. Give you that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. So, all right. Well, we start off with the, as I see, we start off with this bird's eye view of Jen getting ready for her date with Josh. And we kind of get a little bit kind of an homage to what we got in Miss Marvel with the text message graphics.
Yeah, I really noticed that as well, Chris, and I thought it was enjoyable. I love how they basically split up 3 dates in a run of a week, a little bit of a week. Oh my God, David. Yes, we all are.
Yes, David saying I'm hurting for a yurtin after this. Yes, aren't we all? So it was kind of cool seeing that. If you kind of pause at certain points to kind of see the text message conversations, he is asking a lot, like what's her address and kind of finding out where she's living. So I mean, it's just, we haven't trusted a lot of people that have tried to go after Jen, and he was no different. And so he does get the address, and she's very excited, meets up, and they go on possibly what their first official date is. And she seems very happy with Josh, very taken by Josh. And she's getting these text messages from him at work talking about fries and milkshakes. It's nice to see her happy and excited about this. And several dates, we kind of get this kind of montage, and most of the dates, like, they come to the door. He either tries to go in for a kiss or tries to go in, and she's like, nope, sorry, but she's very excited. And one time where she opens the door after she shuts it and he's not there, it's like, oh, I missed that point. And then goes to that drive-in movie theater, and this time she invites him in, and they do some things. They do some in the only tasteful Disney Plus way.
That's the only way I could do it by being censored.
Well, I mean, you did have. We can't forget the few thrusts in the Eternals. So
That's true. That's true. Can't never forget that.
But she's never having to turn into She-Hulk with him, and that's what I think she's really excited. She can be Jen with him.
Chris, I think that's a great point because also I want to just note that the leader was our, well, if we believe that the first attempt to get her blood was the leader, I think that he maybe even having Josh watch her, well, maybe we'll find out that he was watching her for a long time before making his move. I think that they noticed that that was her vulnerability, not emotionally or anything,
Mhm.
just in terms of their ability to get her blood. So it just coincides because we get further down the line in this episode. That is her vulnerability, is that she doesn't have any confidence in Jen. She doesn't think anyone likes Jen. And you can see why it was easy for this guy to get in here so quickly because he's showing affection Jen, especially when we got just a
Mhm.
couple episodes ago, the parade of people saying I would never have dated her if she was Jen, only if she's She-Hulk. So her confidence level as Jen is really down. So it's really easy to see how she can get swept up in this romance.
Yeah, and it's one of those, especially when the next day she wakes up and he's not there. And it's like, well, he could have left for work. He didn't necessarily leave a note. So, it's one of those things like, I don't know how this is looking, especially, she texts him and considering how often he was texting back when she said, had a good time last night, can't stop smiling, and nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it's just like, oh no.
I'm sorry, when you say those text messages, I know we'll get to it later, but all I can think is the group's reaction to them. It's the same reaction I had when she read out the text message, like word for word. Oh no, why would you say that? No, no. And then I sent another. So yeah, it's easy to see though, because I've had the same thing, Chris, waiting for a message and like not getting it and sending a second message saying like, "Are you okay? Like, did you get home all right?" Kind of deal from just an outing, and it can wear on you, and we see it wear on Jen pretty quickly in this episode.
Yeah, and especially as you go after 1 day, after 2 days, after 3 days at that point, and absolutely nothing. And she tries to eventually text, but she ends up not doing it and just trying to wrestle with this. What happened? What is he doing? Obviously, ghosted her. Was this the whole point to kind of sleep with her and then move on? And, he never gave that impression, but unfortunately, we'll kind of see exactly what happens later. But, at one point, it flashes at one point to the office with Nikki saying, hey, looks like you got nominated for Female Lawyer of the Year. And, but she's not interested in that necessarily. She's still hung up on why Josh isn't texting back. And Nikki talks to her about, there looks like there'll be a gala involved. And so this is probably what we've seen in the trailers that we haven't seen yet of her, in this, as She-Hulk in this very nice, elegant gown. So that's probably where we're heading to for the season finale. I don't think we're going to see the gala next week. I think it'll be the season finale.
I wonder who could perhaps be at the gala as lawyers gathering to honor people. Just throwing that out there, listeners. You just take that for what it's worth.
David saying, we've all had those that all had the staring at the phone, eating Lucky Charms moment. Yes.
Reese's peanut butter puffs,
Oh,
personally, David. But yeah, I can see Lucky Charms. My girlfriend loves Lucky Charms, so yeah.
Nikki does think at first that she's still hung up on the intelligentsia, but I love Jen's response that she doesn't have time to deal with man babies that have no life. So
It's true, and that is the way to go. But unfortunately, maybe investigating this organization might have been a little prudent. But they didn't bring the. I don't know if they brought it to her as urgent as it was, and she's also had a lot of stuff on her plate, like you said, with the Josh stuff. She's more concerned about
mhm.
that at the moment.
So Nikki actually recommends her doing a wellness retreat, and we see her try to do yoga to get her mind off Josh not texting. It doesn't work. At one point she's watching Muppets Take Manhattan with Miss Piggy getting angry and opening the bars, which was a nice like Disney touch. And right at that moment, as she's probably just gonna rave and scream, she gets woken up from her sleep on Sunday from a man named Chuck Donnelly, who is Email Blonsky's parole officer, saying that his inhibitor chip is registering a malfunction and he's going up there and would like her to come up, not just necessarily as his lawyer, but just in case she needs to Hulk out and protect him. So he's like, I'm not interrupting your Sunday. Do you have any plans? And she's like, nope. And so
She's so
go.
down right now, Chris. She didn't even do the fake. She didn't even do the fake. Let me check my calendar. No, I'm good. She didn't even do that. She's so down in the dumps right now.
Yeah, exactly. So she heads back up there, and I love the I love the name of the retreat that Blonsky's at, Summer Twilights. And they get there and they see everything's okay. And Blonsky says probably what happened is he got shocked by the electric fence when one of his chickens, his prized chickens, was getting loose.
Are we buying that? Is there a
May,
chance he could be making this up?
there's
There's a
always a
movie coming
chance.
up that's featuring a lot of villains. So,
He could be testing the limits, and realize that it's an easy thing to pass off at that point. So yes, I won't say I totally believe Blonsky's excuse, but we'll have to see on that one. So then, as Jen walks back up to her car, we get introduced to two new characters to the MCU. We get Man Bull and El Aguila, El Aguila. And they're fighting each other. And during that fight, they damage her car, which she can't drive, and so she needs a tow. But the tow truck cannot get there for a little bit. So, for those of you who don't know who Manbull is and El Aguila are, they are legit characters in the comics. Manbull was created in a lab. In the comics, his creator had him kidnapping people off the streets. The guy is named Mr. Klein, and he was carrying on experiments for those that he kidnapped by turning them into animals. And his name, Manbull's real name, is William Torrens. And in the comics, he had run-ins with Daredevil. And when he failed to collect Daredevil for the experiments, Mr. Klein turned him into Manbull. So,
love the character, Chris.
Yes.
It's so fun, and I love that they're bringing these obscure. Because honestly, is what I remember from not only Hulk comics, but the Hulk animated show. There's so many weird, obscure characters that I never thought I would see in there. So it's I'm talking the early '90s animated Hulk show for people listening.
Yeah. And the other new obscure character that is brought into the MCU, El Aguila, is a mutant is now. So we got another mutant brought into the MCU, even though not labeled a mutant, but he is. Born in Spain and traveled to America under this name to become a crime fighter for the poor. He was recruited a number of times by the government, and it was believed at one point he did lose his bioelectric powers on M days. So that's post House of M. And Blonsky says, you know what? Hey, this is a good thing, Jen. You should take this time and take some time and enjoy having some therapy and things like that. And she's like, no, I just actually need to get some work done and find a Wi-Fi signal. And you don't have Wi-Fi here? That's terrible. So I'm going to walk around until I find one to get work done, when we all know why she's needing a Wi-Fi signal. Right, Travis?
100%. She just keeps looking for those texts, Chris. And as somebody who's lived in a rural town on an island in the Atlantic, off the coast of the Atlantic Ocean, I'm going to say I've experienced this. This is so. I feel this pain so much walking around in my house that I grew up in. There's only cell service in 2 rooms of the 6 in the house. So yeah, I know this pain so well.
Yeah, it can be rough, and it's sad that we're that attached at this point, but yes, guilty as charged as well. So she's walking around, and then she finds a signal, a bar at least, in a therapy group session with Blonsky and a number of people, including Manbull and El Aguila. And I love what he calls the therapy session. He calls it Obama Stay. That is,
I know.
that is good. I bravo, way to mark it. And we meet a number of other people in this group. We meet Porcupine, who in the comics, another legit comic, is he builds this suit that contained the sharp spikes, and he was actually capable of launching those spikes as projectiles. And it also made him very difficult to get hit. And he thought the suit would bring him fame and fortune, but the government, which he was working for, another one recruited by the government, wouldn't pay him. So obviously he turned to crime.
I have no words for when I saw this. I was like, what is going on? I had to look up the comic character, the history, just to be sure. Like, I'm like, are they pulling my leg here? Is this an actual character? But no, he is. And The smell thing, I don't think the smell is a comic attribute from what I read, but it was a
But
nice added comedic touch.
but it's nice in the sense of like someone who's does like this is who they are and they can't separate themselves at that point and doesn't think that they're again it's kind of what Jen's thinking. I cannot not be this person and have a life. I'm not. I cannot be not in this guy's case not Porcupine.
There's a moment in the first part there where she meets everyone, where she's sitting there and try to get more single, and they go around talking, and they try to get Porcupine to take off his mask,
Yeah.
and she's thinking about doing it, and even though Jen is so focused on getting that text, she actually stops for a second to pay. So that reveal meant so much to everyone in the room that even
Mhm.
Jen got pulled into it, and I thought that was just something that you don't see very often. That was just a little cool, interesting choice to me that built up his reveal at the very end.
And yeah, we get another person there, a character named Sorensen. Now, there are two Sorensens in comics. There was one who's a mercenary faced off against Punisher that wasn't a vampire, and there was one in Blade that I think was 3 or 4 issues who is a vampire at that point. So, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We have more evidence of vampires here at that point. There you go. All right, Mr. Hines. Synergy.
Synergy.
And again, just like people's like, why are we doing this stuff? It's like, one, it's fun for us who look into this stuff and get really excited when they put these little obscure characters in a show like She-Hulk. This is the perfect show for it because it's very on the nose and giving this large universe. But it's one question I have is like, we joke around Tony Stark creating these villains at that point. All these it's gonna be D-list kind of heroes or villains. Like, man, they just came out of the woodwork and they're just wandering around and being this. This is kind of interesting, and I would love to hear the stories like what inspired these people.
This is probably the only time you'll ever hear me bring this show up on here, even though it is a Marvel show. But it did remind me a little bit of MODOK's animated show
Yep,
when he did a similar crew of what some of the most ragtag villains that
I
I've
do
ever
remember that.
heard.
Yep.
And it's the same thing. We did get some backstory of why those villains were villains too, which I did enjoy and thought it was quite funny. And I would love the same thing here, Chris. I would like to see these people pop up again sometime down the road.
Hmm.
May if this is another season of this or a different show. And you said, why are we doing this? One other thing I think is world building. Even though you don't
Yeah.
think it means adding this stuff, adding more elements and more layers to Abomination and Polanski. If he goes to the Thunderbolts, you could see him being somebody that eventually turns against Val. You could see that from his character growth here,
Hmm.
if it's actually genuine. So I do enjoy the world building that they do here, regardless, even if it's obscure characters. I thought both these characters were fun, and the forever conflict that Man Bull had with the Matador because of being a Matador. He said it just engaged him, and it just worked for me. I don't know why, but I
Yeah.
just really thought it was funny.
Yeah, like you're saying, like he's in this trying to wrestle with this idea. It's like I'm not a matador. I know I'm from Spain, but I want to be I'm here to be a swashbuckler.
You say that like it's a real job.
Exactly. Um, and so like Jen gets drawn into this and starts kind of understanding it, and then we get a surprise person walking in is the leader of the wrecking crew, Wrecker, comes in and she's like, oh, heck no, and gets ready to kind of beat up Wrecker. And is just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And Blonsky's like, no, he's here legitimately. He's trying to better himself. And he goes and says, like, I've made mistakes. Yes, I know I tried to assault you. I know I've made mistakes, but I'm trying to change myself for good. So my question is he really there for good? And to your point, is this all a ploy by Blonsky? Is he really part of this whole thing and just putting one big rouge, like trying to make everyone think he's turned a new leaf and brought in these people? Like, could this kind of be all a ploy?
Let's not try and pretend that he hasn't already been like out of his cage at jail at times before
Hmm.
this. Like, who's to say he couldn't have used the phone when Wang took him out? There's not an impossibility there. Also, if the big villain of this, or they're setting up a Hulk villain of the leader, we know he's coming in Captain America: New World Order,
Hmm.
but if they're setting that up, it's very easy for the leader to contact Abomination in jail. Let's not pretend like he couldn't. If Juan can take him out, then I feel like the leader could contact him. And this could be a setup, you're right, Chris, where they have him here like that, but they already have the DNA now, and the objective.
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
We'll get to that point because I'm not sure that's definitive necessarily.
Well, we didn't see. You're right. We didn't see anything, so you're right about
that. So Jen does open up and accepts the idea. That opens up about Josh and that she feels that she's constantly losing out as Jen, while SheHulk always seems to be winning. And Josh basically made her feel worthless of that, not texting back, not even like, is he in trouble? Things like that. Is it really not a thing? And they actually boost her up, say, hey, you're right. You are awesome. You do have a right to be happy. And even though you hear it, you want to see the proof in the pudding. There are better guys out there and you don't need him. And they advise her saying, hey, don't text him anymore and delete him from a context because yes, he ghosted you and you don't need him anymore. And it's just one of those moments that, Jen had to take another L, but again, it's about Jen is worth the time. Like, she's got this job in the law firm, because of her legal skills, but also, SheHulk. But like, if she didn't have legal skills, would they really have gotten SheHulk? Would they gotten her law firm? No, it in part, but it's hard for her to understand that because again, everyone just wants SheHulk. Even her boss wants her, but only wants her in SheHulk form. So again, it's a lot going on, and people say, "Oh, she constantly needs to be boosted up." It's just like, remember back in the beginning, she didn't want this. She never desired this, and so when this is thrust upon her, as Bruce said, like your life is forever changed. You can't just not be SheHulk. Like,
but you
can't just hide away.
You can't ignore Jen aspect, which is what we got in this episode. Jen needs to be happy as well because, like she even said, she can instantly change into a cool. Like she talked about it in high school, and I bet you a lot of people felt that way. Like if you wished you could turn into a cooler version of yourself, and she can instantly do that. And I thought that was really cool how she thought, like how she said that was awesome at first, but like. No, like Jen's constantly losing. I don't know anyone who wants me, especially with like I said, the whole people in the court a couple episodes ago that baseball said like, no, we would never date you if you were Jen. So I think that if this didn't happen, she'd still be vulnerable to that kind of attack. We'll say somebody going at her emotionally through Jen. So I think that regardless of if they accomplish their goals with this Josh character, she needed to go through this just to realize that she got to value Jen as well.
Yeah, exactly. So we, as we talked about, Porcupine making that, taking off the mask and smelling horrible at that point. And, she does take a run at the Yerg sweatbox and she enjoyed it. So yeah, she got her Yerg on, and then the tow truck comes and they all say goodbye to her, write her a nice card. And did you catch the name of the towing company? Slot Towing. And I didn't. His name might have been Dan too.
You could kind of see DA, but I want to ask you a question because isn't every episode? Don't they have a code? Because I missed the code in this episode for
I missed it. I missed it too. They usually do. So I usually point that out every episode. This one I missed.
I couldn't see it. I really slowed it. I went back and looked a little bit too. I just couldn't find it, and I even looked online. I didn't see any tweets of people saying like, "Here." They
might have not had one this week. They might have not. That could
be it. That could be it.
But yeah. So then we go back to 3 days later. And we see exactly what happened with Josh. So we see Josh wakes up in the middle of the night, copies her cell phone, kind of a la Spy style, took a picture of her sleeping, and then sent to King Hulk emojis of a needle, blood, and thumbs up. Here's the thing: like one could say, well, of course he took the blood, like he did that symbol, but we didn't see anything. And I'm not sure if he did or didn't, because I'm guessing if he did like try to go at her in that form, she would wake up and go Hulk on him.
That is one point, Chris. That's very good. But the other point is, wouldn't she feel it the next day because she's still in Jen form?
Yeah, it could have, or her blood could have automatically healed too. Remember, her blood does, as Bruce pointed out, like has healing properties. As we talked about last week with the fight with Titania in her Jen form, people was like, oh, how come she didn't like get smashed in again? the Gamma blood does provide some healing factors
Okay.
for her in human form. So it could have just been a recon, because I'm wondering again, what's with the picture? It's on top of just being sick and sadistic and working for intelligentsia,
The
putting it out there.
website, the
Yeah,
website, they're gonna make memes of it is what I'd say they'll probably do, or try
true.
to ruin her career. They're really gonna go, like it is sometimes on social media.
Yeah.
I do agree with you though, because we didn't actually see him taking the blood, and wouldn't she wake up because of it? I think maybe he became smitten with her. Maybe he started to develop feelings, and he tried
I
to. But I
I don't
don't
think
know if
so.
that's long enough. I think that he actually did get the blood, and it's really
Yeah.
going to ramp up the leader. I think we're going to see him in the next couple episodes, probably the very end of the final episode,
Mhm.
like our end credit for that, which will probably set him up in what
Yeah,
he's
I mean,
planning.
it's just something I thought, like, again, it's one of those, he said it, he put in the emojis. Oh, of course he got it. We don't have to necessarily show it, but it was just something interesting that they didn't show, considering that the post credits, or one, or not necessarily the post credits, but like what we saw in the last episode, like them making the new needle at that point. We didn't see anything. You would have thought, oh, got the blood or something like that. So that just kind of put it in my mind as like, think, did he get the blood, or was this all recon?
You
So
always question when you don't actually see something happen. You always question it in these kind of
yeah.
things. That's just the way it
So
goes.
so yeah, so I enjoyed the episode. Not necessarily my favorite, but not necessarily my least favorite at that point. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was and what it was trying to do. And again, it was character development for Jen. Yes, okay. No Mr. Cox this week. We're on Cox watch again at that point. We're on Daredevil watch still, and I know Brent selfishly
Brent's probably the only person that's happy that there's no Charlie Cox this
but
week
but
in She-Hulk.
I don't think, and again, this is, I think next week is going to be Daredevil, and then
Oh,
the
yeah.
penultimate episode is going to be that gala fight, and I think Titania is going to show up again. The Intelligentsia are going to show their faces again, and
And I
this
can see
is,
Daredevil showing his face again because of the whole lawyer aspect, just because of that gala.
I think next week, with Daredevil showing up again, I'm just putting it out there. I'll take a swing at that point, not a big swing, but saying Daredevil's going to be another
50-50.
Daredevil. We're going to see the super suit, but we're also going to see him boost Jen in understanding what a double life is like and what it means to run this kind of double life.
He's probably going to do that at the gala.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, so we've got 2 more episodes left. So again, Pentultimates in the MCU are some of my favorites at that point, and we'll just have to see what it is. Talking about the Geekverse guys, and Travis Snell putting out there, again, and I can't say it's wrong, in the sense of, you get a little worried as we get towards the end of these series of, are we gonna, being that this is a half an hour show, typically, are we gonna run into too much all at once?
It depends.
I can't say that I also don't have that fear too, because again, I'm wondering where the end game is of what we're doing, like how we're going to bring the intelligentsia really, instead of just being in the background, are we going to really put it out there more up front?
Uh, I don't have as many questions, like, or hesitant about them sticking the landing, because we haven't been building to like a final showdown between She-Hulk and anybody. There isn't like a villain that I want more backstory on. This is essentially her story, and it's more of a like 30-minute like funny encounter, different kind of thing each week. So I don't know. I think we're just going to have an end credit scene that will set up something, but I don't even know if there's going to be. I think it's going to be a her versus Titania showdown to end this season.
Yeah, which would track at that point. So I still think, I'm still holding on to, we're going to see Bruce again, we're going to see Blonsky again, and we're going to see Titania again.
I agree on all three of those.
Yes, I will continue putting that out there, because I particularly Bruce, and I would love that meeting between Bruce and Blonsky one more time. So, but all right, well, we will see We will see this next week. See if our Daredevil prediction finally happens, and everyone can just get off the boat of like, where's Daredevil? I'm only watching this for Daredevil at that point. But again, we're enjoying the show. That's it. It's a lot. I will be happy to rewatch this when it's all done, because I think it's something different. I think Marvel's doing a much better job with this than a lot of people thought this would be. So
I have had a issue with any of their Disney Plus shows. Like some I enjoyed more than others, but it's just like the movies for me. There is something I can enjoy in every one.
Yep. But all right, so we're gonna kick to our next ad break as we get into the many big news items to discuss at that point. As I know some of our listeners have been pining at the bit for us to jump to, so we thank you for your patience. But listeners, these ads help keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and we can be a bit loud. So give you that 3 count so you can turn down that volume before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. We're hitting the news. The background is changing. If you have seen my shirt I'm wearing at this point, man, I mean, this was a week of breaking news. We haven't had, like, outside of a SDCC, I mean, I'm trying to remember, and it has happened. It's just, when was the last time that Marvel had like, news item that's like, yeah, these are all legit big news stories at that point.
Can't believe you're saying this to the DC Alliance.
I know. Well, again, it's not like, I'm not being selfish. I'm just saying, like, in 1 week, we can sometimes get like one big on top of a news show, on top of like a show being on. But as Phil's in the chat, holy shnikes, I can't believe Hugh is back. I've got the view with Drew. He had a thing with us, new questions. I want to make sure to get that. I've got that started, so stay tuned. But yes, the news broke this week. Ryan Reynolds confirms the release date for Deadpool 3 officially, but also that Hugh Jackman is returning as Wolverine. So in a video posted to Ryan Reynolds' Twitter page, the Deadpool actor Ryan Reynolds confirmed that Hugh Jackman is back. And so I'm going to just kind of read off how he kind of started. In pure Ryan Reynolds form, this is his thing, and said, "Hey everyone, we're extremely sad to have missed D23, but we've been working very hard on the next Deadpool film for a good long while now. I've had to really search my soul on this one. His first appearance in the MCU obviously needed to feel something special, and we need to stay true to the character to find a new depth and motivation and new meaning. Every Deadpool needs to stand out and stand apart. It's been an incredible challenge and has forced me to reach down deep inside, and I have nothing. Yeah, just completely empty up there, and it's terrifying." And then he turns around and says, "But we do have this one idea." And as an individual walks behind him and starts walking upstairs, says, "Hey, Hugh, you want to play Wolverine one more time?" And Hugh Jackman goes, "Yeah, sure, Ryan." And the announcement came with what is likely the first official logo of Deadpool 3, with the anti-hero's insignia with 3 Wolverine claw marks sloshed in through it. And it ends with the phrase "coming Hune." The video ends with Whitney Houston saying, "I will always love you," with the subtitle saying Hugh. And last word to bring another round of laughs and excitement. And it was like, oh my God. Like at first it was just like, wait a minute, because I saw the tweets happening before I saw Ryan Reynolds' videos. So I was posting this stuff in the chat. So I immediately went to Ryan Reynolds and saw the video, and it's just so many questions are popping into my head. It's just like, wait a minute. Travis Snell and I, when we started the show, we had talked about how Daniel RPK, this is now 2 years ago, had put out a casting call sheet that called for Hugh Jackman to return, and nothing came of it. We did a whole show looking at the possibilities of Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, coming back to this, and we're just like, he's gone on record so many times, like, he's done his time. Logan was a great send-off to his character, but we've pointed out too that he did say he would consider coming back for Deadpool. He might consider coming back for the MCU, but just it never was definitive. It never was like, it's like nice to think about. It was just so hard to believe, especially when nothing came of it and we didn't see anything at D23. And a lot of people are saying, like, why didn't they do this with D23? Outside of dotting the I's and crossing the T's on certain things, I think this has been known for a while. Personally, I think this is what happened. I don't think it was about money. I think it was schedules. Hugh Jackman is still doing his show on Broadway with the Music Man. Ryan Reynolds' schedule might not have lined up for them to come out on stage, so this was like, what's the next best thing to do this? Well, of course it's Ryan Reynolds. It's Deadpool. Like, let him make the announcement, and it'll go viral. So, Travis, what did you think when this came out?
This is huge.
I see what you did there.
I couldn't help myself. Chris, I watched the video first before because I opened up Twitter and I follow Ryan Reynolds. So he just shared the video. No, like Deadpool coming back or anything like that. So I was watching it. And honestly, 20 seconds into the video, I assumed it was an ad for Aviation Gin because he's actually pouring Aviation Gin. And I'm like, is he really doing this to us? Like, we're still wanting information for Deadpool 3, and he's basically doing an Aviation Gin ad now to just try and. I was a little frustrated. And then it moved into hilarity. Then it moved into shock when he said that, and Hugh Jackman was like, yeah, sure, Ryan. And we got the second video, which was icing on the cake, where they just gave a little bit of explanation on what was going on. And Chris, I could not be more excited. I love the first two Deadpools. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine is the favorite. You never can rule out anybody not coming back after seeing No Way Home.
No,
Multiverse of Madness. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like Phil saying, I saw the poster and then saw the video. I was like, whoa. I imagined they wanted a special to themselves type of announcement. Yeah, they could have really wanted that too. It may not have been schedules. It just may have been that this was always the plan to do it like this. But, it's... they did a follow-up video the next day because everyone had questions. Well, what does it make Logan? Logan was a great send-off to the character. He said it before. Hugh Jackman said it before and things like that. And I love it that they did a follow-up video and people, did they do it special? No, this was all, this is all planned. So he does say, Ryan Reynolds does say, Logan, it happened. Logan's way set in the future before this film, so we're not touching that. So technically this, if we're going to believe what they say, either they're not touching it because it's multiverse, or this movie takes place obviously before that happens, which is fine. I think that's the biggest thing. That follow-up answer to the question is like, we're not touching Logan. This happens outside of that. So either, again, prequel or multiverse. So it doesn't take away from it. But then they get into this whole thing is like, oh, we're going to tell you what happens. And then they go and as music is playing over them, they do this whole thing. And of course, as I predicted when I put this out there, it's like someone's going to lip read this and they're not stupid. They're just going to joke around with it. And that's what it was. It was like those lip sync discussion that they had was just all joking. But again, Hugh Jackman coming back and doing a MCU proper film. I've got in the background, I'm wearing the suit that I'm hoping he's going to wear. Do you think we're finally going to get Hugh Jackman suited up either tan or black or yellow or blue?
We're getting the suit that was teased in one of the Wolverine movies, is my assumption. I can't remember which one. I think it might have been a deleted.
It's this one.
Scene. But we're getting that. We're getting him finally in a suit. I think it also he might not have to do as much because let's not try and remember the last time he did that physical workout. There was a viral video that went viral of him like doing the final attack, recording it, the voice and how ripped he was and how much he had to do to get in shape. You might not have to do as much if you can add some muscle to some of this just to ease up because he's not a spring chicken anymore. But this is insane. I could not be more excited. And he's going to be wearing the suit. I think this is the first thing. We're talking MCU here, Chris. It's not the Fox X-Men wear black leather universe. This is the MCU. We're getting a costume.
Yeah, Phil thinks it's going to be closer to X-Men animated series, yellow, black, and blue, so the Jim Lee costume at that point.
That would make sense with
not the Jim Lee. It's not Jim Lee costume. It's the Claremont. It's the from the Claremont run with the
X-97 coming back
with Dave Cockrum creating it at that point.
If they went that way with the X-97, just more like people can see both. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things that it's dynamic. Is like, what are they going to go with? Because right now he's tan and black. He's not He's not in the yellow suit. He hasn't been in the yellow suit for a while with Hawksbox. Hawksbox, he hasn't been there since. But again, I think both suits are classic. I'm not going to be unhappy with either one. I just want to see him in the suit. And some people say, well, even if it's just 5 seconds, make fun of it. No, I think this is an MCU. This is not, like you said, X-Men from the 90s, Fox X-Men that were afraid of the costumes. MCU has embraced the costumes. So I think the fact that Deadpool is so comic accurate, it's scary. I'm putting it out there, we're gonna get Hugh Jackman in this costume.
I think there's even a possibility that the first time we see him in this film, he will be wearing said costume and take off his mask, like a kind of a like thing, because he's going to know Deadpool from his previous history. I can't try to understand a Fox timeline, so I think he's going to know it.
Well,
But
here's the other thing too: is like even if you go back to Logan when he's meeting Laura for the first time, and she's got the comic, and he's like, "Oh, they always put these out there. 1% of it's true, the rest of it's false." But he is in costume. He is in a suit in that comic. So that could be maybe the 1% that's true that we're going to see at that point. But the other thing is, too, if you don't remember at the end of Deadpool 2, as he's going back in time, he goes back to Wolverine Origins and he says, "Hey, one day you're going to hang up the claws and old buddy Deadpool's going to tell you you're going to pick them back up again just one more time." He predicted it.
he could even do that to get pull him out of that very instant and keep going with him. There's so many ways they can do this. I have a question for you, Chris, because I was thinking about this. Do you think this is still going to be rated R, like
Yes.
the other Deadpools? Do you think
Kevin,
PG-13 cut just for more money on the table? I don't know how you this. Even PG-13 people, I don't know how they don't go see this. This is something that I think is going to do amazing numbers, even if it's just rated R. But do you think they're going to leave any money on the table, or maybe put a PG-13 cut?
I think, again, in order to get Ryan Reynolds to do this is his character in the sense of like bringing it to film. I'm not saying like he owns the character, because Rob Liefeld will definitely and this was an interview. And again, we take Rob with a grain of salt at that point. Sometimes, again, I like Rob Liefeld, but also I can also say sometimes he's a little love with his own press at that point. But he has been the biggest Deadpool promoter. He sat down with Brandon Davis for Comic Book for Podcast Zero, comicbook.com, and he said he has known about this for a little bit. He has known about this for a while in the sense of getting Hugh back to this role. And it has been a big discussion piece at that point. So it's one of those things that I'm glad it's finally happening. If it's the idea of the road trip film, that will be really cool. That will be very cool. But before I forget, I want to make sure that we get the view with Drew saying, between Hugh Jackman as Wolverine and Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, who would you say was better in terms of casting and performance?
Drew, why do you dislike us so much, to make me choose between these two fabulous choices? I honestly gotta go with Hugh Jackman just for the sheer amount that he's played him. And let's not try and pretend that he could just go off and do his own thing. For the first while, he had to do the X-Men stuff. Ryan Reynolds got to be Deadpool and do his own thing and not have to worry about continuity, connecting, anything like that. So I'm going to give it to Hugh for just the other variables he had to deal with while playing the character.
I will only disagree. I will go the opposite. I will say, not because I think Hugh Jackman is not great in the casting, but Hugh Jackman was completely unknown to the GA when he was cast in this. And
replacement too.
And in the idea of where he grew into character, yes, whenever a new Wolverine is cast, it'll be the shadow of Hugh Jackman that is always cast over that person, whoever they be. And so why I will say Ryan Reynolds is because Ryan Reynolds has lived and breathed trying to bring Deadpool to the screen for such a long time, and we all know he leaked that test footage or that stuff to get it out there to make the studios 20th Century Fox see that there is viability to this character. And people say, well, he's just playing Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. It's like, that may be, but he has done an amazing job. And when I see Deadpool in the comics, I hear Ryan Reynolds at that point. And so it's one of those things that, yes, it's a Sophie's choice, but I will lean towards, to answer your question, Drew, I lean towards Ryan Reynolds.
Those were some good points for Reynolds as well.
Mm-hmm. David asking, does Deadpool jump into the Wolverine and steal the brown suit from there, and that's how it make its way into the movie? Yep, that's potential. But yeah, like getting back to your rated R question, Travis, Feige has, when this was announced that he was coming to the MCU, he did say this will be rated R. This will be the MCU's first rated R, and we know what his opinion of this. But when we see Werewolf by Night, yes, it's in black and white, but all the stuff, all the people have seen the early, seen the screener for this, it's definitely going to be more violent, being black and white. Multiverse of Madness went towards violence. Do we think the MCU is going to make a habit of putting out rated R? No. But I think what wins it and what won Ryan Reynolds to do this is that, hey, this is kind of my character. Yes, you own it now, but if you want me to really want to be a part of this, this is what I need. He's got the director that has worked with both him and Hugh Jackman with. And I think that was also a big part of getting Hugh Jackman back into this part, is working with people he has worked with and trusts with it that are going to do a good job with it. So I've been the one when hosting with Travis Snell. I've been the one saying, again, I understand why you said, like, I'll believe it when I see it. I know he's even more firmly like it's happening. I've been like, I think this is going to happen more so. And I've been saying, just trust in Mr. Feige. Trust in Mr. Feige. This is not going to disappear. Ryan Reynolds won't let it disappear. So
I never had a doubt that it wouldn't be rated R, just because Ryan Reynolds had the numbers to come with Feige being like, I made 700 million in the crap show that was Sony and Fox. Yep. I've made this money, so imagine with your MCU behind it. But I just thought, personally, that they would just have another option available to their younger audience that can do it, because they did do this for the second film, and I did see some people like complain about that, but for me, I just thought it would be another place for people to access the film that they couldn't if it was rated R. But kids today could find the film rated R and be able to watch it.
Yeah, so the release date September 6, 2024. So that's one of the mystery dates we were thinking with stuff being moved around. It's gonna have a No Way Home effect with knowing that this is out there, and seeing them on screen together is going to be kind of a big deal. But we've got a few questions that came our way. What's that?
Billion.
Easily. Yeah, it's going to be, again, I think that'll show viability to Kevin Feige, and that's why I think that, they'll give it this shot and see what it was. But S-Bub says, be honest. When you first saw and heard Hugh Jackman news, did you think it was fake? I don't know. I don't think I necessarily thought it was fake, just because the first thing I saw was Discussing Film putting it out there, and I was like, something happened and I missed something. And I was more of like disbelief. I wouldn't say fake. I would say disbelief is like, it was like, what did I just see?
Aviation gin commercial. So
you thought it might have been, you thought it was fake.
Yeah, I did not think it was going to be a Deadpool 3 announcement and a Wolverine in there. None of that. Honestly, like I said, when I saw the aviation gin bottle and him pouring it, I thought he's doing an aviation gin commercial, because he does those for time to time as well.
Yeah, so Phil sent us one question saying, which X-Men villain do y'all want to see Deadpool and Wolverine take on in Deadpool 3?
Just please don't give me any Apocalypse. It depends on what they want to use for the X-Men in the MCU that isn't Wolverine. Like, that's something that I want them to, like, give them freedom. Like, I personally would like to say Mr. Sinister, for example, but then I think I'd rather see him used in the greater MCU down the line. So it's really hard for me to pick just one villain like that.
Yeah, I would say I'll go meta or whatever you want to call it. I'll say the Fox universe. The villain is the Fox universe. And take out the Fox universe.
Take them down one by one.
Just take them all down at that point. It's
and Wolverine's the hardest one to take down.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, you have this whole thing like Deadpool kills the MCU. I don't think they're gonna go that route, but I think they're gonna go kind of kind of really out there and to say like him traveling the multiverse, like going down and going in and out of the multiverse at that point. It could be kind of interesting. So I don't have necessarily a villain in the sense of I think they're going to go meta. I don't think they're going to go too specific because to your point, Travis, they got to be, I think, like it or not, they're developing a plan for the mutants in the MCU. Not saying they can't redo it, but they also don't want to blow something that they might want to use later on. So they'll be choosy.
You don't want it's a twofold there, Chris. You don't want to cast someone that does a very terrible performance, but you also don't want someone to take over the role in like a one-off type movie. It depends on if they bring them into the MCU. It's really a question of how this movie's going to go about. Like you said, it could be a multiverse travel.
I've got a villain. Oh, Warner Brothers Discovery, you know.
They're everybody's villain these days.
And then Crimson Cow, DC Outlaw sent us one saying, do you think it would have been better if Marvel made their announcement like this Deadpool one? Like put out a video with new exciting info plus date when it's ready as opposed to announce 20 things at once and so much news gets glossed over. He says, I asked this as I keep forgetting much of the upcoming slate as they drop so much info at once, and it was hard to remember it all. I kind of see what you're getting at in the sense of what you're saying is like too much all at once, hard to keep track of it. But I also, it's one of those things that they want to your point, like, do you do a slow drip and always kind of put stuff out there in the conversation? But when you have events like San Diego Comic-Con, to just do one or two things, people would say, oh, that's a failure because I point to the Warner Brothers DC panels. Like, all you have is one or two things. Well, that's a failure. I don't think it was a failure. I think you're looking at two different scenarios of what they're dealing with at that point. So it's also like saying, we're the MCU, we're Marvel Studios, we've got this whole thing for you to get ready and for people to get pumped. Yeah, it's like a big flash at that point, but people are always going to be asking the question, okay, when are we hearing the next thing about this? When, you know, the conversations always kind of be there. And as we see, it's always thinking about what's next. So, but I don't know. I mean, selfishly, I don't mind for the content, getting all that all at once. But I just don't think we live in an age where they want to do the slow drip of news, because when we do get the slow drip of news, it's not necessarily like Marvel's putting this out there. It's the trades that are getting the scoops and the leaks, because as we'll point to later on with our last news story when we get to it, this proves that the trades also work with the studios. The Hollywood Reporter was the one to get the story for Marvel releasing what happens with Armor Wars. So we'll get to that later on.
Yeah, they do have that. They do work in tandem at times, and other times they work against each other.
Quote unquote, they work. We know that they put this stuff and they're not going to make a comment officially sometimes. So,
and to Crimson Kyle's question, I think that you have to take out places like events like D23, because the MCU is a brand now. Like not only Disney brand, but it's its own brand. And you have Apple events, you have events for so many different brands, Nike, where you celebrate the brand. And that's what this is. And the same thing with the SDCC, that's a celebration for your fans, like the nerds, us, that you're giving us. You're saying, like, we're not only thinking about you for this film and next film. That's what I appreciate about Marvel. We're thinking about you, like, we're planning for 10 years. Like, we appreciate that you're sticking with us. Yes. We're not trying to get you for this one. We're not trying to get a billion once. We're trying to build a universe and bring you along for this enjoyable ride.
And to be the point, like when people going back to not to kick Warner Brothers DC down, it was just like, well, they talk about having this 10-year slate. People are like, okay, when's it going to happen? When's it going to be there? I want to see this now, because like it or hate it, Marvel created this monster in the sense of putting out these phases in this since we got to phase 3. You know, at that point, seeing this long-term plan and putting it out there, and it just became like, we need this or else it's a failure. Well, that's just dumb. But again, that's the
Can I say one thing? The putting out the movies isn't the thing for Marvel. It's the long-term planning. Like that's a sign of a successful company. The sign of not successful company is our goal is to get that $1 billion movie. No, your goal should be like what if you have the content that like Marvel has is our goal is to build this world that you want to come and experience so many different aspects of it, and that's what I find Marvel shines at with your shows and everything.
I think it shines in it at that point, but I can understand in the sense, and I'll play devil's advocate in the sense of like you can have a plan, but you don't have to do the Marvel way in the sense of putting it all out there up in front. Now, in what you're saying with DC, yes, they have a lot to like to do triage at certain points and do that. So it's like I'll believe it when I see it. But but because of the way Marvel said it, it's almost like they almost feel like I've got, because he even said that I'm trying to look for a Kevin Feige. I'm trying to do this. It's like I don't want DC to be like Marvel necessarily. I'm okay. Just give me a little bit. You don't have to give me the full 10-year plan. You can give me a little bit to say that this is where we're starting. Give me 4 or 5 films, and we're going to go from there. But again, I'm a rational fan, so I'm not Twitter.
I would love a Kevin Feige type, Chris, a well organized person that has respect and reverence for the source material. And from all accounts, I have never heard one person complain about having to work for Kevin Feige or heard a bad word about Kevin Feige from an actor on video. So I would love to have that person leading the ship, but I agree with you. I don't need a carbon copy of what Marvel's doing, just the organizational structure here.
Yeah.
You have confidence when Marvel announces a plan or a movie's coming. Even if you lose a director, you still have confidence in the film because of the organizational structure, which is something I'm
maybe
one day.
But yeah, so we'll get to one last question before we take our next ad break. Sawball Sanchez in the chat saying, my theory is Deadpool 3 is set on Earth 838, and Wolverine and Deadpool are put in charge of a squad that will fend off an incursion, destroy an incoming Earth. That could be fun.
That's pretty. I
like that. That's a cool idea. But yeah, so I know Brent wanted me to say this. It goes without saying, if you pay attention to his tweets, he is very excited about Hugh Jackman coming to this role. I again, disbelief for him when it first happened, but I know he's very excited, and I know he's going to get an opportunity as we start heading towards Deadpool 3 at that point. Many more opportunities to talk about.
He's going to give some talk. After top next episode, for sure, listeners. At least a couple sentences.
And yes, for our patrons, Brent and I have talked about working in the Deadpool movies and the X-Men movies into our Marvel rewatch. Don't know when. But it's being discussed, so we'll figure that out. So, but all right, we're gonna take our next ad break before we get into our next big news items for this week. All right, listeners, as you know, again, these ads help keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on. Be a bit loud. So again, that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right, so. The next story as we change over stuff is not, we go from really positive to, oh God, didn't see this one coming. Marvel officially has lost their director for Blade. And so this was first reported by the Hollywood Reporter. Bassam Tariq has abruptly stepped down as the director for Blade. And the news comes 1 week before supposedly filming was going to start at the beginning of October. That was never official necessarily. Marvel Studios issued the statement saying, due to continued shifts in our production schedule, Bassam is no longer moving forward as the director of Blade, but will remain as an executive producer of the film. And they said this in a statement to THR. We appreciate his talent and all the work he's done in getting Blade to where it is. It says that he released a statement saying it's been an honor working with such a wonderful folks at Marvel. We were able to put together a killer cast and crew, eager to see where the next director of the film takes the film. Now, Blade production was set to begin this fall and is now stalled as they enter into search mode for a new director. He directed it and co-wrote Mogul Mowgli, well-regarded rap drama starring Riz Ahmed, and he's been with Blade since the summer of 2021, working off an initial script from Watchmen scribe Stacey Ossie Kuffour, and this is coming from, and so one, it's shocking because this came out like late, I want to say Monday night, like really late Monday night. This was put out there, and there's a lot going on with this. I mean, obviously, still attached to be an executive producer of this, not totally stepping away, but what does this mean in the sense? So, this came from Jeff Snyder from The Ankler. He's a scooper, blogger, things like that. People like him or hate him, whatever. He does have a track record of getting some things right. I wouldn't necessarily put him as my quote unquote broken clock scooper. Definitely a little more at that point. But he said, I'm told that the current Blade script is roughly 90 pages and features exactly two, he says, lackluster action sequences. Marshall is said to be very frustrated with the process. Feige is said to be spread thin, but hey, that's just what sources are telling me. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm told Blade filming has been pushed to November, might have never been October, as a Marvel sources search for the new director. Also hearing Beau DeMaio has come on to work on the script. And so, not great news, especially when we were this close to supposedly we'll call it either October, November. Within a month or two, they were start to be filming. So, is the script going to be rewritten? Are we starting back from scratch? Is this further delayed? Because we did have a date of Blade coming into the MCU. Casts have been done. They were getting ready. Not great news.
No, it's not. But again, this is one of the things that I enjoy because you're getting somebody who's come from chaos, from the fiery chaos of projects, never knowing if they're going to go through. Hell, projects getting fully shot and just getting thrown in the can in the garbage. So I have some experience with this, and I'm not that worried because of, like I said before, the organizational structure here at Marvel. I feel like they will be able to get somebody. Just look at Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness. I really love that film. I loved how they got Sam Raimi coming in. I really liked the first Doctor Strange too. So there isn't a difference in the two directors for me in terms of how much I enjoyed. I enjoyed both films. I think here we'll get the same thing. We'll find somebody. The stuff with Snyder saying about the script is a little worrying to me about only two action scenes. But that's one of the things I love about Blade.
We will take that is his opinion on what he's seen. Again, I'm not saying he could be right, could be wrong. That is an opinion. But the release date is November 3rd, 2023. So we're getting close to that year mark. And I know, yes, the principal photography, principal stuff is, they get started with this, but cameras have not started rolling on this. We have no director now. They are not going to hit principal photography beginning until they land a director. Now they've said Marvel is aiming some big names with this, and they already have some people they're going to. I've heard one huge sky name is Spike Lee's name. I've seen from some people, which again is just like, I'm not saying he can. I'm just saying like it's one of those like Spike Lee, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg. It's just like that would be really awesome. I just don't see it. Just not saying Spike can't do it. It would be really awesome to get Spike Lee at that point, but I just don't see it. It's do they still hit that date right now? I'm finding it very hard to believe that date's not going to move. And I can get Marshalla's like frustration in the sense of like it's finally getting started, and just when we think we got started, we're pulling you back again. So I can believe getting frustrated. The whole Kevin Feige being spread thin. You can make an argument, but again, I'm not Kevin Feige. It's kind of hard to say he's spread thin because there's everything going on. But he's got a lot of great people working under him too. So what people say, I don't know. It's tough to hear this kind of stuff because it's almost like it's this very clickbaity sound. Because of course it's just like it's not impossible to believe, but it's also like, you're just getting the clicks just because the MCU's coming to a close. Kevin Feige's losing his mind.
Britt will appreciate you saying that, Chris, because
the MCU is over.
The MCU is over. I like I said, that's why I'm not worried about this. I don't have that much worry because I do feel like they will bring somebody in. I want to see a heavy action. Like Blade is one of those things. It doesn't have to be that heavy in a CGI as a thing as well. Like I think that you could do a really good. I'm not sure if Spike can do the action that I want to see from Blade.
I don't want to say it's not capable.
I've never seen him do that. Yeah. That's what we're saying. I've never seen him do that level of action that I would expect from a Blade property like we're going to get. So.
And again, it wasn't like I'm leaving for creative differences. It's just like he may have a different schedule and this might have push happens. Like it puts me out of it. And just like with everything, I don't think this was a sudden, like, they woke up the next day and he's out.
Yeah, this is not like Kevin Feige seeing some dailies or seeing some ideas and being like, "What? He wants to do this? Get him out of here!" No, that's not how these guys operate. They are in communication, like they know what's going on. It's
And
not like
it probably got to the point saying, okay, we're getting close to October. People are going to start wondering, we're not seeing Blade starting. We're going to have to put this out there. So again, they put this out there late at night on Monday to bury it at least for
late
6 or 7 hours, or late Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah.
Buried it for a reason, to kind of let them get their ducks in a row as responses at that point. David saying, Spite, phenomenal director, not for Blade, not for the MCU. Again, it's just like we said, we just haven't seen it. And again, I throw Spike Lee's because that's one of the names. There are a lot of names. And again, this isn't, like you said, the first time this has happened. Scott, as you said, Scott Derrickson to
Sam Raimi.
Yeah, Sam Raimi. You had Edgar Wright exiting, and then got Peyton Reed to do it at that point. It would have been, as we talked about, Edgar Wright wanted to do that was creative differences. Scott Derrickson, also creative differences. Those words, creative differences, did not get uttered in this one. It was scoring. So it could be a new change. Like, again, this is definitely one of our most anticipated ones because of who's attached to it, of what they want to do. I mean, some supposedly leaks from the current script that's out there is talking about kind of like going through the 1920s all the way to ending in the 1980s. Again, I just want to see this film, and I want to see Mahershala get this amazing opportunity to be out there. So again, I don't disbelieve that he's not frustrated. I would be frustrated because of
when was he cast?
This casting came about since 2019.
So he's just been a voice since 2019 for a couple seconds.
Yes. Yep.
So I can understand his frustration there too, Chris, just wanting to get it going. But this movie, like this property, Blade, let's remember that I think this started the superhero craze for Marvel, at least, showing that you could do this. Like the first Blade came out of nowhere. No one was expecting anything from this in terms of your general audience or doing any sort of numbers. And I thought this gave Marvel idea of, well, we can do more with our movies. We have more characters that are relatable that can get the ball rolling here. Like I think this showed them that there is success in the films for their characters.
Again, what I don't want, and with everything going on with the blowback with VFX, with Marvel Studios, they have a date right now. If the date has to move to put out the best Blade film they do, move the date.
Agreed.
Put out the best film you can, and the date has to move. Guess what? None of us are believing that Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars are going to come out in the same year. I'm sorry. I will be happily proven wrong, and Kevin, and we could do hashtag Kevin told you so.
But Chris,
Fine.
this isn't like you've only gotten one piece of content from this MCU world this year, or one piece of content next year. You have so much here that is so much easier to put things off because you still have things going on in this big world. Which that's why I love Marvel so much, is that regardless, we're going to have stuff that's happening in this world that are adding to our experiences, that is adding to things that we'll need going forward. It's just, it's great. So that if, like you said, if you need to push this back. We just want a fantastic property that we know this can be, especially with the actor you have for Blade.
Yeah. So we'll see exactly. Do we get it? One, I do not see them starting production in a month.
No.
I'll lean on the idea, okay, you got a month in production, was really supposed to start in November. I don't see that happening. I don't know if that director is basically going to be told you're going to inherit the script and go with it. And, that can be somewhat iffy in the sense of it's not really, quote unquote, your film per se.
They don't work out too well sometimes.
It doesn't work. I would say that by the end of the year, we'll have a new director. It will push production back to the beginning of next year, and that date's going to move because of it. I do not see them anymore hitting that date with less than a year to go, with getting rid of that year mark. I'm just not.
I'm in total agreement with you there, Chris.
All right, so our last story of the night. So we kind of got this good sandwich. We got the good news mixed with the bad news, mixed with surprising and good news, in my opinion, at that point. This basically came out like 5:30, 6 o'clock tonight at that point. I mean, if we weren't already getting enough breaking news at that point, but Marvel Studios has announced that Armor Wars, which was currently slated to begin production next year as a Disney Plus series, has changed. It is not moving. It is not being canceled. It is being redeveloped as a feature film. So the move essentially pushes back the title further down the development slate. Sources say that the studio was committed to getting the story told right, and in the process realized, and this is coming from the Hollywood Reporter, broke this exclusive, realized that a feature would be much better suited for the project. Don Cheadle is reprising his role. He is still on. And Yasir Lester, who is acting as head writer for the series, will now become the featured scribe of the show. I mean, of the film. So Marvel's been eyeing a 2023 start date for the series, but a few people who were gearing up for it were notified Thursday of the change of direction. No directors have officially been attached, and it's unclear on when the Armor Wars feature would pop up in Marvel's timeline of films. So remember, as we kind of talked about Secret Invasion is supposed to lead directly into Armor Wars. So it's going to be very interesting to kind of see this. And I had seen actually Marvel Entertainment put out this statement, and I want to read it. It said, as announced by the Hollywood Reporter, Marvel Studios' upcoming Armor Wars, which is slated to be Disney Plus, is now making the jump to a theatrical release. And this has been very key in the sense of, I'm not saying that they can't say like, oh, it's going to be a theatrical release. It's going to be a feature film put on Disney Plus. They're not saying that. I'm not saying it can't happen, and I'm not saying I don't want to see Disney Plus MCU feature films. But the fact that on Marvel.com, they said theatrical release.
It's going to be in the theaters.
Yeah. And so this, again, I was excited that we get a series focused on, Don Cheadle's Rhodey, getting him more of the limelight. He's going to be in the limelight in Secret Invasion, building his character up. Now, we had this kind of discussion in our GUA chat of that, what is Marvel Studios aiming for? If this is going to go truly theatrical at that point, what is their hope for success with this? And the discussion was like, is someone going to team up with Rhodey in this sense? Is it, it's going to be a Rhodey, like a lot of films these days, it seems to be like one more edition. Like I'll point to the Marvels. It's not just a Carol film. It's a Monica Rambeau. It's Kamala Khan. A very easy one you put into this, and it'll fit really well, is Riri Williams as Ironheart.
Yes,
because again,
agreed.
The whole thing is about, from the comics, Armor Wars is about other companies taking and stealing Tony's designs and using them for what he doesn't want. So now it's Rhodey protecting the legacy of Tony Stark and what he did. And yeah, if the person that's going to be going with Rhodey on this journey is Riri Williams, I think that's great. I'm not saying that Don Cheadle is an award-winning actor, amazing actor, has done a great job. MCU has not done a lot with his character to really say that, people will gravitate towards it at that point. But Secret Invasion's coming. Riri Williams is coming in Black Panther. And then before Armor Wars was even getting started, her show was going to come out before this. So I am applauding that he's going to get, for his last thing on contract for Marvel Studios, he has gotten moving from a series to a full feature film. Armor Wars is a big story. I don't need a page to screen, but who else would you want on your wish list to be now in this film? Besides Riri, because I saw your approval of Riri Williams.
Yeah, that's the one that I would initially go, especially with Black Panther 2 coming out here now. And the way they're doing some of the focusing on younger Avengers. I could also see Tony Stark's daughter being in this film as well because of them stealing Tony's tech. I don't know what else would work. Yeah, I saw some people say Hammer
Yes,
Justin Hammer,
yes,
but I
yes.
feel like he's going to be in this anyway. I don't think that's going to help make it, because the question for me is, I'm really happy for Don Cheadle to get this. I'm just not sure if War Machine, not Don Cheadle, but War Machine is a big enough character to justify like a big feature film. Like you said, without bringing somebody else in adjacent with him to help him. Nick Fury comes to mind as well.
The one thing I will hold true is it's the idea of an Iron Man character.
Yes.
I know it's the whole debate is that this suit that makes the man or the man that makes the suit. The way they sell this, and again, I'll give you another person who's going to be involved in this. Power Broker.
Oh yes. Oh
Sharon
yes.
Carter is going to be in this movie.
Yes.
If
They're laying
already
the
wasn't in
seeds
the
for that.
series. And so it's this war of the sense of protecting Tony's legacy and Tony Stark being in this movie all over the place. May not be physically there, and I guarantee you this may be also a cameo in the sense of, seeing Tony in this in some way, shape, or form. I think that this movie, if done in my mind the way I'm thinking it, it's too much to go into right now because it's going to be like a word soup right now. This is a movie that rings the possibility of being what Winter Soldier was for Captain America, in the sense of spy, espionage, clandestine kind of stuff. Not like Secret Invasion clandestine, but like what pseudo political thriller what Winter Soldier was. This could be along the same lines and has a very good idea of being this way. So that's kind of my thinking, that this can be really big if they do it just right.
Oh, I agree, especially with the aspect of the different armors that you would get from the different companies that steal the designs. Yeah, sign me up for this, Chris. But like I said, I like Don Cheadle as War Machine, and I'm glad that we've gotten him dropped into a couple Disney Plus shows because of the tease for Secret Invasion. We know he's going to be there for at least a scene.
Especially with what we talked about, Brent and I, is like, who is he now? In the sense of, is he in the president's cabinet as Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State? Like, his status is rising in the sense of the government, but also being a hero.
Agreed.
So again, a lot of news to kind of chew on. We're going to see exactly. I did not see this coming. This is a very interesting move, but like some other things, that it's not necessarily unprecedented for this. It's one of those things where Hawkeye was going to be a feature film before the team turned it into a Disney Plus series.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that because some criticisms, not from me because I really enjoyed all the Disney Plus shows, but there are some criticisms from people saying that some of them feel like they're movies that are chopped up for TV shows. But like I said, I don't have that critique, and I'm okay with this. I trust the process. That's it. If you're a Philadelphia 76er fan, you might understand that, but I trust the process when it comes to this stuff.
So right now, with Deadpool 3 taking the September 6, 2024 slot, Armor Wars could be in line for either a 2025 in February or July, which would put it before or after one of the next two Avengers movies.
I think it has to come before.
I think so too.
So we will get that sooner rather than later.
Again, people say, well, what about Captain Marvel? They came up between like Infinity Wars. Yeah, that's not impossible. It's just a question of where are we at this point. And I would almost say that I think it would be more hard hitting. But again, if Secret Wars is going to move, they also don't like having a big gap either.
They also, Captain Marvel was a period piece in the 90s and had an end credit scene that tied into the previous movie and went into the next one. So it was part of a greater plan, and it made $1 billion, even though it was there. Like I said, with Marvel, the MCU is a brand. I wouldn't rule out giant numbers for this movie just because I'm done lowballing any type of movie that comes from the studio. I full confidence.
But very surprised. But again, like I said, I believe that if it's not Armor Wars, you will see a Disney Plus feature film that is MCU canon. It will happen one day. It
I
will.
agree, and possibly I think it could be with Young Avengers.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It may not be this one, but it doesn't mean that they can't change it and put it on it. But I think that the fact that even what I read from the press release from Marvel, like they called it theatrical.
Oh, okay.
That's so. So yeah, but all right. So that is all the news at that point, and so yeah, let's get into. Well, let's see. Let's see what we got at that point with
We got a
time and
couple.
everything. Yeah, we got a couple. So all right, we're gonna take a. Let's let's get through some of this feedback at that point and push that limit. So all right, so so read up some of those questions we got.
We got one from Tim Rooney, and he asked if you could reread a Marvel story for the first time again, what would it be?
I'll put that to you first.
I got two: Craven's
Okay.
Last Hunt and House of M. House of M more because I listened to World's Finest True Believers, the plug for Chris's show, before I read the comic, so I knew some things that were going to happen, but so I would have enjoyed being surprised. But also that talk got me to go read the comic, so I, can't complain about that.
No.
No.
I can understand that. For me, I think I have two, maybe three. First up on my list is the Fatal Attractions event. The amount of carnage that exhibited and the surprises and the shocks of everything, particularly with our named as I'm wearing him right now, Wolverine. At that point, that kind of blew my mind. And I remember as a kid just reading it, I must have read through those issues, just like every issue. It's just like it's one of my favorite X events. Another X event I would point to is Age of Apocalypse. That would be one I would love to reread for the first time.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I would kind of stick with those two. Maybe, my last one would be the Winter Soldier run, Brubaker, Captain America.
Nice choice.
So, but yeah, so great question, Tim. What else we got?
We have a question from Crimson Cowl. In Phase 7, bearing a surprise announcement of something for Phase 6, do you think we'll get a new Defenders movie or series? After that, who do you think will be in it? Will it be the same team from Netflix or mostly new? Let's say you get a 6-person roster this time. Who do you pick? I've got Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Punisher, Luke Cage, Moon Knight, and Miss Marvel, just to mix it up. Plus, she lives near most of them.
All right, we got he threw a lot of different things. So we'll take each one by point. So do you think we'll get a new Defenders movie or series?
No.
All right, I'm a maybe. It just all depends on where we're at post Born Again.
Yeah, talk to me after post Born Again, but right now I'm going to say no.
All right, who do you think will be on it? So same team from Netflix or someone new if it does exist?
Same team from Netflix because you have that already world built in that you can keep going. Although I have some questions with some of the people that have been in these Netflix shows that have already also been in the MCU.
Gotcha. So let's say you get to me answering the question. I'd say a mix. Some new, some old, some of the Netflix, some not. I don't think it's a straight Netflix team. So gotta get to that MCU. Kevin's gotta have his little thing that I created this. So let's say you get your 6-person roster. So who is on your roster?
There are some from the originals. I'm going to take the 4 originals of Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. I will throw Punisher on there as well. I'm going to go with Spider-Man as my other one because I really enjoyed. There is an animated series where Spider-Man goes around with a lot of Defenders, and it's quite enjoyable for me. I know it's a little bit on the younger side, but there are some enjoyable moments in that.
Gotcha. My Defenders is also a mix of some characters that aren't in the MCU yet.
Ooh.
So you didn't say MCU proper. I was just like, so I will have Daredevil, Punisher, Luke Cage. Well, technically Luke Cage not in the Netflix MCU, but not like MCU. So Daredevil, Punisher, Luke Cage, Doctor Strange, and my two people who completely have nothing to do with the MCU yet, but who have in the comics been a part of the Defenders in some iteration, Nomad
Ooh,
and Darkhawk.
I know less about him.
Yeah, a lot of people know less about Darkhawk at that point, but so I'm not going to go comic origins, but that might give some of our listeners like do some homework on Darkhawk. Just had a relaunch by Kyle Higgins, a miniseries at that point.
I'll be doing some after we're done this conversation, Chris.
Yep. So cool, like cult favorite at that point, but yeah, Kyle Higgins is definitely one of my favorite writers. Did a good job on the miniseries. So, but yeah, so great questions at that point. So. Let us go to fact or fictions at that point. So let me look at look at the ones from last week. So these came from Brent. Number one, both Zemo and Abomination will appear in the Thunderbolts. Hashtag the Thunderbolts. 71% said fact. 29% said fiction. Number two, it will be revealed that Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy know Peter is Spider-Man since they were both off-world in No Way Home. 30% said facts, 70% said fiction. Let me go back. What do you say to the first one, Zemo and Abomination?
Fact. Not what do I say? What did I say? Because I vote on these every week. And the second one, what was the second one again?
Thor and the Guardians actually still know.
Fiction, hard fiction there.
Gotcha. And number three, after Wolverine is established in the MCU, we will see a What If episode featuring him teaming up with Captain America in World War II. A What If episode on that. 65% said fact, 34% said fiction. Stu Little did chime in on that one, saying fiction because they'll do a canon story about Logan and Cap in World War II.
I said fact.
Gotcha. All right. So as the guest, you get to do fact or fictions this week. So what do you got?
I got three, Chris. I'm surprised that I didn't write down some editing terms into those because my brain was complete mush when I thought about some of these, but they're really centric on the news that we got this week.
Okay.
For them anyway. We will see at least two other characters from the Fox X-Men universe in Deadpool 3.
Including those that Deadpool introduced?
No, completely from the other movies, like the.
So
X-Men
we're not
movies.
seeing Josh Brolin get.
No, not those. Well, we might, but those aren't the ones I'm talking about.
Okay, you're talking about
like Cyclops, Professor X, Beast, like somebody like that, like two people like that.
It's kind of what we talked about. You get into tricky areas at that point. I'm a fact, but it's not a hard fact.
I feel like because he made jokes about the lack of X-Men that he could put into the film last time, I feel like we might get a few more this time. That was part of the thought behind that for me.
I say Kevin will say the most obscure X-Men he could ever have from the Fox franchises.
You're not wrong. From X-Men 3, X United, the big battle, we'll get some obscure characters. Hugh Jackman.
We'll get the Juggernaut.
Oh my God, who went on to be a villain in Arrow, season 5 or 4, or I can't remember now. I think 4, season 3 actually. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine will make at least one more appearance as Wolverine besides Deadpool 3.
Say that one more time.
Hugh Jackman's Wolverine will make at least one more appearance in the MCU as Wolverine besides Deadpool 3.
I'm going to say fiction. And the only reason no.
I think it's Secret Wars. That's why I'm...
Yeah, Secret Wars, yeah. The fact that I do not... Right now, my hope for getting an X-Men movie during Phase 6, because it ain't happening during Phase 5. We already kind of know that. Phase 6 is getting dimmer and dimmer, and I'm accepting that. Yeah, with Secret Wars on the table, I'll say fact just for Secret Wars.
Also, side note, I feel like we could get an X-Men film now right after the events of the second Avengers movie.
Yeah.
And have the world completely changed and mutants are a part of the world now. I feel like that could be the way to go with Kang, So who knows? Who knows?
I think kind of what I said. Whatever phase, I know I was thinking like phase 6 or phase 5 was going to be a mutant focused one. Obviously, it's not happening because of the multiverse saga. I think, like you said, whatever the next phase, let's call it phase 7. Phase 7 will begin the mutant saga.
Agreed. And the final one, a little bit similar, kind of like Brant's, but a little different. Val will recruit Abomination by the end of She-Hulk season 1.
Val recorded Abomination. This is one.
I feel like that's why they left him out of the Thunderbolts roster, is because of this.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, I'm only go fact. I just don't. Yeah, I'm only go fact because again, remember you can't say her name. You can barely think it. So, you fact too?
Yeah, 100%. I'm fact on all of these that I put out here.
All right. Well, we will post those on Sunday afternoon at that point, and we will. We'll see what you all think about that. But all right, well, no comic book club this week. We kind of said that last week with Brent being out of town, and so again, listeners, we will get back to comic book club with Uncanny X-Men number 95. So you got another week to read up on that, and so end of volume 130. I want to thank you, Travis, for stepping in. I know it's very late where you are, and you're sticking with it, but you're a true trooper.
I love this stuff, Chris. I love Marvel. It's the only sad thing is I won't be listening to the show. You get your obligatory playthrough for me on my podcast app, but I don't like listening to myself on podcasts, so I'm not going to get to listen to Marvel Alliance this week. But I experienced it personally, so I'm okay with that. I just thank you so much for having me on. It's like I said, I love Marvel. I don't get a chance to talk about it enough. It's also not nice to talk about a well-oiled machine.
Well, I know Brent gets that opportunity to listen, and I know he always enjoys getting to be the listener again. So, but yeah, so thank you again for joining us. As you know, the door is always open for you to return and to step in at that point. So thank you so much, and I know Brent appreciates it as well. But tell people how they can follow you and plug your other shows on this lovely network of ours.
Well, first, thank you for having me again, and Brent, thank you for going on this trip because it resulted in me being able to go on this episode, and I really enjoyed it. You can find me on Twitter at Travis_156. You can drop me a line. We can chat about pretty much anything. I also host 2 shows on the GUA network, DC Alliance, and we're gearing up for Black Adam. That's going to come in less than 3 weeks. I think it's going to be very super. That's all I'm going to say about that. And I also host Superhero Discussions on the network, focused on animation, and we're right in the middle of Rick and Morty season 6 right now, and I'm loving every episode. It's so enjoyable. I know you love the show as well. If any of Marvel Alliance listeners enjoy Rick and Morty, please check that out because I have so much fun talking about it.
Yep, but yeah, definitely check all those out for all your lovely animated needs at that point. So, but yeah, so thank you all for joining us, and you can follow this podcast on Twitter at Marvel A Podcast. Me personally at Chris Balgo. You can follow Brent at Brent Tech Prime. You can follow the as I forget the show plugs at that point, I forgot one more thing. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network. You can feel free to tweet, email if you want to provide feedback, ask questions, fact or fictions, let your own theories where we're going with these lovely big announcements. I also want to thank one more time our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. Use that code MarvelGUA at checkout for $2 off every single order. And you can continue to rate and review Marvel Alliance and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever podcatcher of choice may be. Thank you all for listening to us. We had a very lively chat. Thank you all for listening live, listening on your podcast apps. And again, thank you all for joining us. Stay safe out there, everyone, and particularly to our listeners that are going through some really tough times with the hurricane going through. Our thoughts and prayers are with you all. Definitely, stay safe out there, everyone. Please stay safe out there, everyone. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers.
See you, everyone.
All right, our post-credits discussion tonight. We had some choices, and this one kind of we'll go with what is quote unquote more confirmed. Wasn't big enough to make the big rundown, but we wanted to discuss it. So Marvel Studios confirms more monsters are coming to the MCU future. So this is coming from the exclusive from the direct. Russ Milham spoke to Werewolf by Night's executive producer Brian Gay about the future of monsters in the MCU, with Werewolf by Night making its debut in just a very short couple of weeks. Gay told the direct, saying, I think one of the very cool things about the special is that it's just peeling back the corner of monsters in the MCU, right? So there's not just the monsters that are part of Werewolf by Night, but the ones that were up on the wall. There's some of the artwork as well. What all this lends is to the idea that for centuries there have been monsters within this world of the MCU. And they've just been tracked or hunted or kept at bay by these hunters. And I think, well, we don't know exactly where they'll pop up next. The idea is that with this wide swath of different species and types, they're going to pop up again. You're going to see these guys in a different ways, of course. So
I know one.
You know one? All
I
right.
think I know one.
Okay, you think you know one. Okay. So for me, it's exciting just to kind of hear. It's like, okay, it's like, well, they're putting this out there, but it's like, I don't take anything for granted. I don't assume anything. Come on, how many times have we said Mephisto confirmed?
Yeah.
It hasn't happened yet. Not saying it won't, but the idea we're seeing Man Thing in the MCU being introduced as this very kind of big time character that's putting forward in this special. It's one of these things that really excites me, saying this is not going to be a one-off. Monsters are coming into the MCU, and the fact is saying they have been around for a long time. We just haven't seen it, and these hunters have kept them at bay. That's a really cool idea to me.
Oh, agreed. And I really think it could be utilized in a second season of Moon Knight. I think he could be going around taking down some of these monsters. Maybe not killing them, maybe trying to cure them. Maybe there's a place where he can put them. But I would love to see him after we got away from the gods. I would like to see him in a more of a horror element, and just some of the fights that we saw of the beast that he fought in the first season. I think you could do some really cool things with some of these monsters that Marvel's has had in their past.
I mean, we talked about it this week with She-Hulk. We have vampires, so that's a form of monster. So we know, obviously, Blade is another form of monster hunting in the way of hunting down the vampires at that point. But, this, I've been saying it for a while. I've been drumming the beat for it. Midnight Suns is coming. I'm just saying it's coming at that point, and that would be another
game coming out for it, for crying out loud. There's definitely something coming for it in the property world.
It would be another perfect place to do monster hunting at that point. Just as we know, everything is a long burn. So just because we get the Werewolf by Night special, it's like, okay, where's the next monster thing? Probably gonna be Blade. It is a slow burn, but the fact that they're saying like this is not a one and done. I think that's one of those things when people say like, well, you got vampires with Blade. Him saying this says like it's beyond Blade. This is beyond ideas. Like there are certain ones that didn't make the cut for this one, but it's like we do have to use them because these ideas and these concepts and these properties are really too cool just to let them just like go into the didn't make it pile.
Agreed. So. And you can always have like you just add to your world. You add more and more. Like this is another element to the Marvel world. The monster horror element. And like the first thing I think is I would love to see some of our classic MCU characters like tell me like Spider-Man interacting with some of these like where I would love to see some of these, but the quips and the jokes would come. So I think it's right. I think you should have these characters established because you never know when you could pop these characters back up further down the line.
Yeah, so it's going to be exciting. The first reviews kind of came out about Werewolf by Night. They've been very positive. They've been very surprisingly positive in the sense of where people were thinking this film, this special is going to go, and also clocking in at close to 50 minutes. Yeah, so this is not the fear of it's going to be 30 minutes at that point. 50 minutes is a significant. It is a, if we want to say it, it's 2/3 of a DC AU animated movie. Being mostly 90 minutes. So that's pretty good. I'd say
Oh,
we're gonna get our money's worth for that.
they do a dance if they can hit the 90-minute mark because for the longest time, 70 minutes was the max you would get, and that is such a hard way to tell a
Yep.
story.
And again, we got one more special coming out with the holiday Guardians of the Galaxy. So if the Werewolf by Night special is going to be around 45 to 50 minutes, people say, "Oh, is that with credits?" Okay, let's not focus on that. Let's focus on we were getting more than just 30 minutes of it.
That's a
James
minute
Gunn,
difference
yeah.
anyway, so who cares about the credits?
James Gunn has also said like it's going to be along the same lines of time as well. So, but
Oh, so really interesting. I can't
yep,
wait to see. Like just like I said, the world of Marvel, you can do so many different things because of all the groundwork you've laid over the past 10 years. Now you can foray out into these different worlds that you wouldn't have even imagined about when we first saw the Avengers in 2012.
yep.
It's exciting, Chris. I just can't wait. They're not sitting on their laurels and just making more of the same thing. They're constantly pushing the envelope, and I think that's something they never get enough credit for.
Oh, I think Marvel gets a lot of credit. I think some people.
Okay, well maybe the people got to stop mad tweeting about Marvel not taking chances because I
Oh,
just think that that's entirety of Phase 4 was things that you never would have thought you would have seen.
I will steal from Star Wars from a certain point of view. All from a certain point of view. So, all right, all lot of stuff to chew on this week. Hope you enjoyed it. We will see you next week for the penultimate episode of She-Hulk, episode 8, and make sure to check out DC Alliance for the March to Black Adam. All
There
right,
you
see y'all
go.
later. Bye
Later,
bye.
everyone.